My name is Joe Poole, and I'm running for Supreme Court Place 6. And the reason I'm running is because of the appointments of the justices to the Supreme Court and the musical chairs brought to my attention that this recent appointment in November to be on the ballot in December caught my attention, and I decided to run for Supreme Court Place 6. And the reason that I bring in what I'm going to do for the court is to reinvigorate and reuphold the right of trial by jury. And I'm referring to Article 1, Section 15 of our Texas Constitution, which states the right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate. Since the year 2000, 74% of all jury verdicts reviewed by our Texas Supreme Court have been reversed, overturned. That's not right. It's not conservative. It's not constitutional, and something needs to be done about it. We need to reinvigorate our right to a civil jury trial, and it's so important for our economy and for our economy to prosper, and it's what caused us to have economic superpower prosperity for 200 years.
Well, as you said, you placed concern on the 74% statistic of jury decisions in civil trials, being appealed and then being overturned. Why is this a problem? If you do have a right to trial by jury, as it says, it's inviolate. But does that also mean the verdict of the jury is inviolate as well?
Well, in Texas, on the civil side, of which our Texas Supreme Court is the highest court of civil authority, the jury determinations and fact determinations are conclusive as of the courts of appeal. They're not supposed to be reviewed or revisited in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a court of discretionary review, but only on questions of law and other interpretations of law and the uniform application of law among the 14 appellate districts. It's not supposed to be overturning jury verdicts as something that it's in its normal purview.
In your experience as an attorney, have you had the Supreme Court overturn any of the decisions trials that you've been a part of?
Well, I'm actually one of the few attorneys that has had a jury verdict upheld about 2 years ago by the Supreme Court based on my work on a case, and it's one of the 26 percenters that actually was upheld at the Supreme Court. I've had other cases that have been overturned that have been jury verdicts, and they have been reversed.
Are there any Supreme Court decisions that overrule jury verdicts that you think are particularly egregious?
I really cannot speak to any prior decision other than to talk philosophically, politically about the overturned jury verdicts and the 74%. I will tell you that it's inappropriate for them to accept campaign contributions from groups such as Texans for Lawsuit Reform, and then they also have the 74% statistic. Lawsuit reform is fine when it's done constitutionally for doctors, as happened in 2003, 2004, when they limited doctors' recovery against doctors and hospitals. That's all good stuff that was done constitutionally. It's when you mix the branches of government and have lawsuit reform in the judiciary is when it's a problem.
Your experiences are a contrast to the current makeup of the Supreme Court. Many were judges or appointed, etc. How do your experiences define your judicial philosophy?
Well, I like to tell people that I have more than twice the constitutionally required experience for this job. I have met a payroll for 20 years in oil and gas. I've met a payroll in self-storage business. I know what it's like to conduct business. I know what it requires. And a lot of people that are appointed for 2 or 3 or 4 jobs straight out of law school, they don't understand the business side of our whole economy. I do, and I understand the economics also. So I bring that as an additional advantage, additional qualification for this office to know what the economic effects of decisions are.
So, would it be a valid argument, or your opinion, that the current makeup of the Supreme Court is not business friendly, or it doesn't empathize well with business?
It seems to empathize too well with business, because mainly the 74% overturned jury verdicts are oftentimes for a business as opposed to a consumer that has been overturned, their jury verdict. And especially egregious when it involves insurance, and there's a contracted for premium paid to contract away risk. And the events happen that entail the risk and recovery for the risk, and then all of a sudden you have to get a jury verdict, and then it's overturned and you don't get the premium back either. And so this is destabilizing the business and causes problems.
Is there a current or former U.S. Supreme Court justice who you identify with?
Well, I've answered this question before, and I used Hortense Ward, who was the first female Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court. And it wasn't so much for her short term on the Supreme Court as all the women's suffrage rights that she fought for and acquired over 20 years of her work in political activism for women's rights. And she was the first Harris County female voter, got her first female voter card in, I don't even know what year, but it was in the 20s, I believe. So yes, that was for, getting women's rights so they could actually serve on a jury, could actually be on a corporate board. All these things she accomplished.
One thing that's been covered in the news is you filed a lawsuit against the state Republican Party to try and remove your opponent from the ballot, or from the primary ballot. Could you give us your side of the story on that?
Well, yes. We tried to, we learned and pulled the copies of Jeff Brown's petitions, and found them to be very specious in numerous regards. We contacted the Ministeri's office, the Republican Party chairman, and let him know so we could do this, without causing a big stir. And they came back and said no, just because his notary was unlicensed and other issues, he still had 50. Well, we checked, and he didn't have 50 still in COA 4 and 6. And so we contacted him again, and no result. And then we had to file for a temporary injunction. And why this is important, and it's been resolved in the sense that he's still on the ballot. But here's what's really going to be a killer, and that's coming up with this Battleground Texas, this whole millions of dollars that have come in here to turn Texas blue. And I say Brown is blue for this reason. His filings are so bad. They are an official government record. They will be investigated by the Travis County Attorney's Office as soon as he wins the primary. That'll be a huge field day for Wendy Davis on her bid for governorship of Texas, because Abbott is the Attorney General, and let this go, and then they're going to come and show, and they're going to have notaries, they're going to have Ministeri's brother who did some of the petitioning for Brown. It's going to be a major embarrassment if Brown remains on the ballot, which he has, and wins. When it comes back, they're going to, it's going to be a problem with Article 37 of the Texas Penal Code for false government filings and tampering with official government records.
One of the criticisms from some groups was that you hired a lawyer to represent you that is considered to be a Democrat, named Buck Wood. How do you respond to this accusation?
Well, Buck would, and I don't even know that he's a Democrat, but everybody tells me he's a Democrat. That's not an issue. When I have a legal concern and I need professional legal assistance, number one, you get the best attorney that you can get and afford. Number two is, in this particular case, well, the word was out to don't represent anything against Brown because the Republican Party establishment has said that he's the guy and needs to remain on the ballot. So that was the other thing we were facing. But there's no problem with getting the best attorney. I'm not ashamed of that whenever you need the best attorney.
How would you improve the ethics or the integrity of the Supreme Court? Are there any areas that you think need improvement?
Yes, we need to have better transparency on the constitutional issues involved. And what I'm specifically referencing is your right to a jury trial. And when is it summary judgment of doubt? Is there an opinion? There needs to be an opinion every time we summary judgment out and prevent a jury from being heard. When somebody files and pays a jury fee and then it's not heard, there needs to be an opinion. That needs to be transparent and reported so there's a database of all occurrences. The other thing is decisions on the appellate districts and the Supreme Court need to also be transparent so we can see what kind of case it was, what did they ask for, and what was the determination at the end and why. So these are all things that we can lend more transparency so we can get a better understanding and a better guidepost and a better evaluation of our constitutional rights as administered by the Texas Supreme Court.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. How can people find out more about your campaign?
Well, I would like people to show up at poolfortexas.com, like me, endorse me, send us contributions, all these things, because your constitutions are at risk. The other thing you can do is if you're concerned about the Wendy Davis use of Jeff Brown's petitions, you can go to standwithpool.com and see what we're facing coming up if he wins on the primary. Thank you, and it's a pleasure being here with you today.
Thank you.